Gerad.
Hi Fearne.
Welcome to the Happy Place Virtual Festival. I'm so glad that you could stop by because there's lots of things that I want to talk to you about today for personal reasons, but I also think there's lots of things that people will gain from greatly, especially at such a weird time. So I guess to start off, I'll say that we've been friends now for, God, it must be nearly 15 years or something.
Yes.
It's been a long time.
Amazing,
and you are, you're a 5-element acupuncturist, and also you teach the method as well. Can you just give us a rundown of what that means?
To be an acupuncturist?
The 5-element bit, I think, the
5-element bit.
Quite imperative.
That's a big question. Well, to be a 5-element acupuncturist means that you are primarily of service to other human beings. Meaning that you become what in the tradition is called a heavenly pivot. And very simply, the concept is you have heaven above, earth below, and us little human beings run around between heaven and earth. Heaven's daddy, earth is mummy. And basically, we're given this opportunity to live in this wonderful Garden of Eden, more or less. And then the idea is that some of the people running around in the Garden of Eden get lost. And I'm not getting religious, by the way, but it's quite a nice image. And my job, or all 5-element acupuncturists, is to restore the balance of the 5 elements in that person so that they sit comfortably, peacefully, and happily between the two polarities of life. So it's a very, very simple concept, meaning when we're in balance and in harmony with nature, then we feel good, quite simply. And that's really what we do, is it's internal medicine. So we change the internal environment to match the external environment, and then there's a match. And it's the matching that brings the peace and harmony and the health.
So when I come to see you, and just, you know, in our friendship, obviously we have lots of discussions and conversations around different subject matters, and particularly when I'm in your practice room, we'll have a chat, and then you specifically know where to administer those needles, where you're going to put that needle in my body and what that's going to do. So you put the needle in, you twist it. What is on a physical level happening when you're doing that?
Well, our physical form is the tangible part of us that exists within the world. So we have to exist within the world just like a tree has to exist within nature, or a river has to run within the landscape. The idea is that we have to find our rightful place. So when we're diagnosing someone, we're saying, what is it about them that stops them from sitting comfortably in their environment? So when we're using the needles to change the flow of energy, we're supporting the bit of you that we believe is getting in the way of you sitting comfortably in the environment. It's the same thing in nature. If, for example, the trees grow too much and they block the sun and the water becomes stagnant and the sunlight can't come through and the minerals in the ground start to deteriorate. Our job then is to say, okay, there's something wrong with the wood. We need to change the way the wood is growing. Or for someone else, for example, it could be there's not enough sunlight. So the sunlight's not coming through. So these are weird concepts because we don't think of the elements being inside of us. But the Chinese concept was that everything that's outside of us in nature is also inside of us, the same basic laws. So the needles are, you're just like a gardener going out with your shears or your trowel, and you're changing the internal environment to match the external environment. And the assumption is that the external environment, of course, is nature is much bigger than us little human beings. And so it has the kind of dominating factor, it has the trump card. So if we can match nature, everything clicks into place. The problem with human beings is we flip it the other way. We think if nature will fit in with us, then yippee-doo. And as we all know from right now with coronavirus and the environment problems, that ain't gonna work.
Exactly. And it's such a lovely notion that we should all feel connected to nature, that our fingertips don't stop here, that it goes into everything around us. But we've moved, of course, so far away from thinking like that in the modern world, and how quick everything is, and how, I guess at times sort of vapid, like we're not necessarily experiencing the real and the deep, because everything feels quite surface, and that's culturally how we've kind of been swimming along. And I really wanted today to focus on focus this conversation on being, which is essentially that. Before we get into that, what does being mean to you? How would you interpret that? How would you articulate what being is?
Okay, it took this. I mean, this is my favorite thing. I mean, for me, it's been a lifesaver. When the penny dropped about what it is to be, was such an amazing moment, because I spent so many years reading stuff and meditating and doing bad things and everything. And when the penny finally dropped, I thought, oh my God, it's so simple. So the simple thing is, and this might freak some people out, is I realized, or I knew deep inside, that I am a spiritual being having a human experience. It sounds kind of mad, but if you actually think about that as an experience, for example, if you say to someone, do you exist? They always go, yeah. Then you say, well, how do you know you exist? Well, I do. What? How can you prove it? Well, I've got a body. So what they then do is they immediately know they exist. And then they go, oh, well, yeah, because I've got hands and I've got a life and I've got parents and I've got a job. And they define existing through things that happen around them. Whereas when you actually ask them, do you exist? They go, yeah. That's being. The knowledge that you exist, or what the Buddhists say, Sat Chit Ananda, which basically means the knowledge of your own existence is bliss. It's like the starting point. So everything else comes as a secondary to that state of being. It's also called peace, when you feel at peace.
But we've totally warped that whole lovely sentiment, because in everyday life, we don't just think, God, this is such a blessing to just exist. We've gone, oh God, I exist. And what am I going to do? And there's all this stuff I need to do. And there's all this stuff I haven't done. But there's all this awful stuff that I've done. And the doing is so much, the being bit seems almost irrelevant in modern day life. I mean, not in all cultures, but certainly the culture we live in. Doing is God, it's king, it's everything. It is, all empowering. And all we want to experience is doing. Do you think that is mainly because we seek distraction from looking at? No,
I think we just got a bit obsessed with it. I mean, doing is wonderful, because that's if we're going back to the idea that we're spiritual beings having a human experience. The human experience is doing stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, otherwise, why would we bother?
Yeah.
I mean, there's no point in just being. There's no real value in just being as a human being. We're here to produce. We're here as part of nature, and the nature is creative. I mean, watching, how nature evolves and how species evolve and everything. So the doing is really important, as long as we recognize that there's a whole other thing that actually informs that and creates that.
And does that mean...
That's the problem, is that we've abandoned the being and put all our attention into the doing.
So does that mean then that we should try to leave space to just be? Like you said, there's no point in just being and there being no doing at all, but should there be, time divvied up that should focus on simply being and thinking about that, or remembering it, or feeling it?
Yes, if your attention has been taken elsewhere, absolutely. The reality is that when we're well, we are being and doing at the same time. That's basically feeling well. That's feeling good and happy. That is what's happening in that moment, because you have an awareness of yourself as a being. You're okay. And then you have these things around you. Some are good, some are bad, but it's okay. The beingness allows the good and the bad to happen simultaneously. You can tolerate, I just cut my toe. It's okay. I don't care that I cut my toe. It's painful. But because I'm okay, it's all right. So it's about where we put our attention. And culturally, ever since Descartes said, I think, therefore I am, the whole culture moved into this idea that whatever you think is really your state of being. And we became thinking beings. And that became the priority. And we kind of abandoned spirituality, we abandoned religion in some ways, we abandoned anything that isn't tangible. So it's not that anything's gone wrong as such. It's just simply that we're looking in the wrong places.
And we've become obsessed with doing. And so being isn't necessarily, I think sometimes I interpret being, because I am obviously a doaholic, like I know it, I'm very aware of it. And sometimes I am in a state of flow. So I do click into that being and doing. When I'm painting, there is little thought and I feel balanced and it's this beautiful moment. But there are times where I'm furiously scrubbing the floors and I know I'm just doing it to kind of distract myself and to feel, you know, like I'm, you know, doing something. I don't know. I'm not even sure why I'm doing it. I just can't. I know what it is. I don't want to just sit with what's there. I don't want to sit with whatever feelings are bubbling under. That it's a total distraction.
Well, we don't like suffering, do we? I mean, we've been told this myth that somehow we're not supposed to suffer. I mean,
yeah.
A big part of life is feeling uncomfortable and then moving away from feeling uncomfortable. And then you feel comfortable, then you feel uncomfortable. That's just part of the deal. There's no escape from that. There's no such thing as a perfect, blissful life. However, what the being thing does is it anchors us in a safe, peaceful place. So if we're firmly anchored in the being, then we can experience the pain and it becomes interesting. I mean, I know it's a terrible thing to say for people that are suffering greatly, but the reason that people suffer greatly is because they abandon that part of them that is okay. I mean, if you think about old people that know they're going to die imminently because they're old. So my father is, 92 years old. He knows he's going to die at some point, but he is not like at the window screaming, I'm going to die. He's sitting there watching TV. There's a kind of innate wisdom in us that knows we're okay, even though we're about to pop our clogs.
Yeah, I'm interested in the whole sort of suffering thing. I've been doing a lot of reading recently on Wim Hof and his method of, immersing yourself in freezing water and sort of reframing what pain means. And again, I think the modern world has exasperated the thought that suffering is bad and happiness and joy are the only things worth striving for, because I wouldn't be doing any of this stuff if I hadn't felt extreme pain, self-loathing, all the bad stuff. So I've learned everything from that suffering and, where it's taken me. And I think in ways I am able to be curious about some of it now, not all of it, but some of it. So is that being? Because I think I still sometimes misinterpret being and I assume that it means stillness. Not necessarily physically, but it means that perhaps a mental stillness. Perhaps I would articulate that as acceptance.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of different words for it. I mean, the way I think of it is that you objectify your thoughts and feelings, so you have some distance. This kind of reverse gear that we have, that we forget about sometimes, because we're kind of in like, oh, I'm feeling really good, oh, I'm feeling really bad, oh, I want to feel good. We're bouncing from side to side, from one feeling to the next. We forget to step back and get a new perspective. It's possible to step back and go, well, there's the good things I like, there's the bad things I don't like, and they're both valid. There's night and day. We can't deny that. That is the world we live in. There are two sides to everything. We need to be at peace with that. But what we tend to do culturally is run towards the thing that we think is better, and we deny the other thing. And that's the thing that exhausts us. That's when we start scrubbing the floor because we're trying to avoid see as negative feelings. And then people say, oh, you must be positive. Don't get negative. It's like, really? Why? What's wrong with the negative? I mean, nighttime theoretically is the negative versus the positive of daytime. But they both have their beauty. Nighttime, you have a nice sleep. Daytime, you get to run around and chat with people. They're both valid. They need each other. So if make friends with both sides.
So if being is, if we can view it as a step back from all of those, big highs and big lows that we see, we'll all have bespoke ones that, mine might be, my negative is probably anger. And then my positive is probably sort of extreme joy and happiness over here. I think those are the two that I sort of swing from and to and oscillate between. If being is that sense of stepping back, my initial worry when we've talked about this previously is that I wouldn't feel the potency of the high, or I wouldn't necessarily get as much from the low. But I know that that's not true.
Yes, it's not true, because it's a matter of your point of perception. So I can look at this glass, for example, close up, and it's quite interesting close up. I can also stand back and look at it from a distance and look at it in relation to other things. I have that choice, but we don't exercise that choice in life. So we find a problem. There's my problem. And I'm staring at it. Oh my God, I hate it. I hate this thing. It just keeps bothering me.
Mm.
But I can actually put it over there and look at it from a distance. And I have a different relationship with it.
Mm. You know what's a weird way of describing that exact thing for me in a sort of a very real life instance is if I ever go on a plane, not that I have or will anytime soon, but if I'm in a plane and I'm flying up, as soon as I've gone past the clouds, all the shit I was worrying about, and 3 hours ago at home, I'm like, what? That's all down there. Like I can feel a separation, and it's the only time I can really do that without thinking about it and without effort. I just go, oh God.
Yeah,
that's
and you know what?
What's
lovely about that image is there's an acupuncture point up here, on here. It's on the lung meridian, and the lungs obviously are about breathing in the heavens. So the point here is called head above clouds, and it is exactly that. It gives the person the capacity to look beyond the detritus and nonsense of life and see beyond, and see eternity and see space. And that is a natural quality in us human beings when we're well. The ability to see above everything, to step back and look at everything from above and from a distance.
Okay, so that's interesting because one word that we hear battered about all the time, I hear it in relation to myself constantly, and I don't know how comfortable I am with it, is well-being. There's a whole new movement or whatever, but wellness to you or to what it is with these beautiful religions and cultures and ways of life that have been somewhat lost is that wellness is that head above the clouds and having a greater perspective. Is that correct?
Well, well-being doesn't really make sense because if and this is a language thing, but being is not well or not well, it is. Being is a state.
I love this.
It's an internal state that's neutral. When you say, is it well or not well, then you've immediately abandoned being and you've gone into the mind.
That's so cool. Oh my God, we need to scrap that language from modern day society. This is genius.
Because it puts pressure on people. You see, most of our internal organs are there to get rid of the shit.
Right.
Because all of them are about how we deal with the outside world and how it comes into us, and we filter and we keep the bits we need and we get rid of the rest.
Yeah.
That says a lot about who we are. What it's saying is that the internal organs are there to maintain the purity of who we are, which is being. But they give us the opportunity to be in a world that's a mix of dark and light and bad things and good things. We're supposed to engage with awful things, but we're supposed to process it and move on from it.
Yes.
And it's the beingness that enables us to do that. And beingness has nothing to do with good or bad. It's a natural state that exists within every living thing.
I'm so glad I understand that better, because when I feel any slight discomfort with that word being used so much around anything that I'm discussing, I will really understand why.
Yeah, I hate it, actually.
Yeah, I don't know. I never feel like that's what I'm necessarily doing. I'm just enjoying having interesting conversations and learning. That's all I'm ever doing is learning, because I want to know as much as I can. And it doesn't necessarily fit that terminology. So when we talk about that head above the clouds, or that slight step back to look at what we deem good, bad, ugly, appropriate, inappropriate, we'll all understand that concept. We can all sit here and go, oh yeah, okay, you step back from it. But there'll be moments for all of us where we go, how do we do that? Because sometimes we feel so in it, we are drowning in self-loathing, worry, feeling like the victim.
Reverse gear, basically. That's as simple as that, is that you step back from it. I have really bad behavior and I have really good behavior in equal measure. I know it. But the only time I know it is when I step back and look at it. Yesterday's a good example. I behaved very badly in one way and very well in another way. And at the end of the day, I stepped back and I could see it. Okay, yes. I don't mind that. I don't mind that because when I step back, I'm okay.
Right.
And I accept my failings and I accept my successes, and it's just as part of life.
Are there sort of practical ways in which you can help yourself do that if you're struggling to get a distance from it? does writing it down help? You know, what could be a practical way to go, right, I'm going to slightly remove myself from all these big feelings to look at them? You know, are there any ways?
Well, one of my spiritual teachers many years ago said, it's very simple. Just don't believe anything you think. Stop believing your own mind. Question every single thought you have. Because we keep believing our own thought processes and things people have told us and things we've kind of collected over the years. Because if you question everything you think, who's doing the questioning? It's not your mind anymore. It's you, the being.
So is that what we call gut instinct or intuition?
No, I think intuition is more once you're actually in life and you're negotiating your way through things. I think that's where you kind of make choices about whether you're going to go down the dodgy route or the more profound route or whatever. You know, I mean, it's all okay. I think it's almost more benign. It's simpler than that. I'll tell you, can I read you I mean, I hate it when you say, can I read you a poem? I mean, it's the worst thing. I'm only going to read you 4 lines of it because I make everyone sick. But anyway, this is a Rumi poem. And this was part of my penny drop moment. So here he says, out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. Where the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about. Ideas, language, even the phrase each other doesn't make any sense. But it's that thing about giving yourself permission just to lie down in the grass and stop thinking, stop planning, stop, you know, and to empty yourself completely.
Yes. Okay, I weirdly did this quite literally the other day. I was in the thick of all these huge emotions and my son's behavior was really challenging and he hasn't been sleeping and I was questioning my ability as a parent. And I said to Jessie, right, please, can you deal with the rest of bedtime? And I took myself outside and I lay down on the grass underneath this tree in our garden. And I just stared at the tree for about an hour. And I don't think I had necessarily any thoughts or judged myself. I just needed to check out because I'd hit a wall. I was like, I just don't know anything anymore. And I think I sort of instinctively just went and had a lie down just to go, I'm out. I've just checked out. Do you know what I mean? And
yeah, I think that's exactly. I mean, you've answered your own question there. That's the best way. It's like you hit the reset button. And the way to do it is to have real humility and say, I don't actually know what's going on here.
Yes.
I surrender.
It's hard.
I surrender to this situation because I've got no clue.
It's so hard because, you know, I can, I guess, try and be a bit too controlling about things. And I like finding solutions. I like problem solving. I like trying to look at things from different angles to see if there's new things we can try. And then sometimes you go, I've literally exhausted all options. I'm literally going to lie under that tree because I had run out of ideas at that point. And I think I saw that as failure in the moment, but I think now I'm talking to you, maybe I don't.
No, not at all. I mean, I think the important thing is that there's room for it all.
Yeah.
It's not about getting rid of anything. It's about embracing the fullness of the experience of being a human being, which is that we are a being and we have the capacity to think and to do things and to make mistakes and to correct them or not correct them. You know, it's an absolute web of mystery.
Yeah.
Why would we get rid of something if it's part of our life experience? Because we don't know in that moment whether in the future we're going to look back and go, oh my God, that was the best thing ever.
Yeah.
But the thing that keeps us sane in this mystery is the being bit. And it's being able to put your attention back on that bit of you that is okay permanently, not conditionally based on what's happening externally. Because we've got no control over anything. I mean, right now, you know a bit about my story with my neighbors and the wall that fell down.
Oh, God, yeah.
So much. It's so unfair, and I've written all these bleeding heart emails, and yet there's a part of me inside is kind of laughing at myself. I can kind of have a giggle with myself as I'm hating them.
But I love that you say that because I think sometimes we look to people that teach, or we look to people that we admire or inspire us, and we assume that they are living and breathing what they're teaching without any failure. They're not fallible anymore, you know, all this stuff. And actually what you're saying is, and it takes the shame and the punch out of everything, you know, make mistakes, dislike people, you know, do all the stuff that we think is so, you know, makes us this awful person, but then just at the end of the day, take a step back and go, all right, well, I can see I behaved well there and I behaved badly there. And that's fine. That's being.
Yeah, because none of it's true. We're very kind of attached to this idea about what the truth is. That, you know, I've got like with these neighbours, I have to work out, well, who is right?
Yeah.
And he quite rightly said to me, there are two sides to every story. We're probably never going to agree on this situation. So really it doesn't matter. So this idea about seeking the truth in situations that can be seen in two ways is kind of an exhausting waste of time. At the end of the day, you have to, you know, fight the battles that you can possibly win and know when to give up and move on. You know, we're not taking any of this with us. You know, this is a one-shot deal for all of us. So why not have a really interesting, varied, bright experience and look in every dark corner and every bright space?
I love it. Honestly, I know we've chatted about this subject matter a lot, but something's like massively clicked with me today on the being side of things, and with the wellness, well-being thing. It's made me really think about all that, and I can put it into, I can implement it to parts of my life I've struggled with recently, and that's massively helpful. Gerad, thank you so much. Thank you for everything. We could talk for hours, and we'll
we could, I'm sure,
at some point in life, I'm sure. But thank you so much. Thank you for stopping by the festival. Always a joy to talk to you, and take care.